Hi, I'm Valentina. I'm 32 years old, an independent architect living in California. 10 years ago, my family erased me from every event, every gathering, like I never existed. But that day, when they walked into my beach house to host a reunion after a decade of silence, they had no idea that this time I was the one in control. Let me take you back to where it all started. 10 years ago, I was standing in my aunt's backyard during our annual family reunion. I was 22, fresh out of architecture school, portfolio in hand, dreams bigger than my bank account. My older brother Diego, 5 years my senior, was the golden child. Stanford Law, six-figure salary before 30, the kind of son who made our mother's eyes light up when she talked about him at church. I remember that afternoon so clearly. The sun was setting, casting orange light across the patio where everyone gathered. My mother, Carmen, stood at the head of the table, glass of wine in hand, making toasts. When she got to me, her smile tightened. "And Valentina," she said, voice carrying across the yard, "still figuring things out. But that's okay. Not everyone finds success right away." My Uncle Hector laughed, clapping Diego on the shoulder. "At least you have one kid who knows what they're doing, Carmen." I tried to explain. I had just landed an interview with a boutique firm in San Francisco. I had designs, concepts, a 5-year plan. But when I opened my mouth, my mother waved her hand dismissively. "Dreams don't pay bills, sweetheart," Hector interrupted, not even looking at me. "You need to be more like your brother." Diego sat there, saying nothing. Just smiled that comfortable smile of someone who never had to fight for a seat at the table. Later that night, I overheard them in the kitchen. My mother, my Aunt Teresa, Diego. I was coming back from the bathroom when I heard my name. "Maybe we shouldn't invite Valentina next year," my mother said, her voice low but clear. She brings the mood down, always so serious, so sensitive." Diego's voice followed. "Agreed. She needs to figure out her life first. It's exhausting watching her try so hard." I stood frozen in the hallway. My Aunt Teresa added, "She'll understand. It's not personal. We just want to celebrate success, not potential." They laughed. Not cruel laughter, but worse. Casual laughter. Like my absence was a minor inconvenience they could solve by simply not inviting me. I didn't confront them. I walked back outside, grabbed my keys, and left without saying goodbye. Nobody texted to ask where I went. The next family reunion happened without me. And the one after that. And the one after that. For 10 years, I watched their lives unfold on social media, birthday parties, weddings, graduations, all without a single invitation. When I tried to reach out the first year, my mother replied with a text, "You're always welcome to visit, mija, but maybe when you have better news to share." I stopped reaching out. But here's what they didn't know. I wasn't sitting around waiting for their approval. I was building, silently, strategically. And the person who saw that, who always saw that, was my grandmother, Abuela Rosa. If you've ever been pushed out by your own family, told you were too sensitive, too dramatic, not successful enough, subscribe to this channel, because I promise you, by the end of this story, you'll see that sometimes silence is the most powerful weapon you can wield. And you'll understand why this beach house, the one my family just walked into, represents everything they tried to take from me. But they had no idea. When the clerk asked for their reservation name and they saw mine on the ownership documents, everything changed. Let me tell you how I got here. 3 years after that final family gathering, my grandmother passed away. I was 25, running a small freelance architecture practice from a studio apartment in Oakland. The funeral was the first time I'd seen my family in person since the reunion. They were polite, distant. My mother hugged me like I was a stranger. Diego shook my hand. After the service, the family lawyer, Mr. Thompson, pulled me aside. He was an older man with kind eyes and a manila envelope in his hands. "Valentina," he said quietly, "your grandmother left specific instructions. This is for you alone." Inside was a small golden key and a handwritten letter. I recognized Abuela Rosa's shaky cursive immediately. "Valentina, mi amor, you are the only one who understands the value of patience. This key opens a safety deposit box at my lawyer's office. Don't tell anyone until you're ready. They see you as quiet, but I see you building. Silently. You will outlast them all. Con todo mi amor, Abuela Rosa. My hands shook as I read it. Mr. Thompson gestured toward his car. She wanted me to take you to the bank today, if you're willing. I nodded, not trusting my voice. At the bank, Mr. Thompson led me to a private room. The safety deposit box was larger than I expected. Inside were documents, photographs, and another sealed envelope marked, "Open First." I tore it open. The deed to a beach house in Malibu. Property value, $2.3 million. My grandmother had purchased it 30 years ago for a fraction of that. Attached was a letter of intent, notarized and legal. This property is for Valentina Castillo only. She will know what to do with it. She is the one I trust to carry forward what I built, not through noise, but through persistence. I stared at the deed, my grandmother's signature at the bottom. Beneath it was a stack of photographs, old family pictures, holiday gatherings, birthday parties, but these had something extra. Sticky notes, dozens of them, in my grandmother's handwriting. One photo from a Christmas dinner 15 years ago, my mother and aunt laughing in the background. My grandmother's note, Carmen told Valentina her drawings were cute hobbies in front of everyone. Valentina didn't cry. She just stopped showing her work. Another photo from my high school graduation. My brother in the center of the frame, me on the edge. The note, Diego got a new car. Valentina got a card. She never complained. Page after page, year after year. My grandmother had documented everything, every dismissal. Every time my mother compared me unfavorably to Diego, every moment I was made to feel small. At the bottom of the box was one more envelope. Inside, bank statements. $50,000 transferred from my grandmother's account to my mother's, dated the year I started architecture school. The memo line read, for Valentina's education. I never received a cent of that money. I sat in that bank room for an hour, reading and rereading everything. Mr. Thompson waited patiently outside. When I finally emerged, he handed me a business card. Your grandmother also arranged for a property manager, he said. A woman named Lucia Morales. She's been maintaining the beach house for years. She knows you're coming. I drove to Malibu that same afternoon. The beach house was more beautiful than the photos suggested. Floor-to-ceiling windows facing the ocean. Open concept living space with skylights. 4 bedrooms, each with its own balcony. It smelled like salt air and possibility. Lucia was waiting on the porch. She was in her 60s with silver hair and warm eyes that crinkled when she smiled. Valentina, she said, pulling me into a hug like she'd known me forever. Rosa told me so much about you. She said you'd come when you were ready. We walked through the house together. Lucia showed me every room, every detail my grandmother had loved. In the master bedroom, there was a framed photo of me at age 8, holding up a drawing of a house I'd designed for a school project. She kept that here, Lucia said softly. She'd look at it and say, that girl is going to build empires. I couldn't speak. I just nodded. Lucia handed me another envelope. She told me to give you this when you arrived. She wrote it 2 years before she passed. I opened it there, standing in the bedroom with the ocean view. Valentina, if you're reading this, I'm gone. But I need you to know something. The money I gave your mother for your education, she never gave it to you. I found out too late. I'm sorry I didn't confront her. But I'm giving you something better. This house, your independence, your proof that you were never the failure they made you feel like. Don't tell them yet. Build first. Become who you're meant to be. And when you're ready, show them what quiet strength looks like. Te amo siempre, abuela. I folded the letter carefully and put it in my pocket. Lucia watched me, understanding in her eyes. What will you do? She asked. I looked around the house, at the ocean, at the space my grandmother had given me. I'm going to build, I said, just like she knew I would. Over the next 7 years, I transformed that beach house into a high-end vacation rental. I hired Lucia as the property manager. We hosted celebrities, executives, families celebrating milestones. The house became known for its design because I redesigned parts of it myself, adding architectural elements that turned it into a showcase. The rental income funded my architecture firm, I hired 12 employees. We took on projects across California, custom homes, renovations, a community center in Oakland that won a design award. I worked 16-hour days, not because I had to prove anything to my family, but because I finally had the freedom to build the life I wanted. I didn't tell anyone about the beach house. Not my mother, not Diego, not any of the family who'd erased me. I stayed off social media. I didn't attend weddings or baby showers. I simply disappeared. But I kept watching. I saw Diego get married, buy a house in San Jose, have 2 kids. I saw my mother post photos of family dinners, reunions, holidays, always with the caption, "Grateful for family," or "Blessed beyond measure." I wondered if they ever thought about me, if they noticed I was gone, or if erasing me had been so easy that they forgot I existed. Then, 7 years after my grandmother's death, I got an email. It was from Diego, sent to an old email address I rarely checked. Subject line, "Family Reunion, let's reconnect." I almost deleted it, but curiosity got the better of me. "Hi, Valentina. I know it's been a long time. Too long. Mom and I were talking, and we think it's time to bring the family back together. We're planning a reunion in California. Beach house rental, full week, everyone included. We want you there. Let's start fresh. Your family and we've missed you. Let me know if you're interested. Diego." I read it 3 times. "We've missed you." As if I'd been the one who left. As if I'd chosen the silence. I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I called Lucia. "Do we have any bookings for the 2nd week of July?" I asked. She checked the calendar. "No, that week's open. Why?" I smiled, even though she couldn't see me. "I think we just got a very special reservation request." 2 days later, Diego sent another email. "Found the perfect place for the reunion. Beach house in Malibu, fits everyone. I'll handle the booking. Just let me know if you'll come." I replied this time. 1 sentence, "I'll be there." He wrote back within minutes. "Great, can't wait to see you." He had no idea what he'd just walked into. I spent the next month preparing. I digitized all of my grandmother's notes from the photo album. I scanned the bank statements showing the $50,000 transfer my mother never gave me. I contacted Mr. Thompson and had him prepare affidavits confirming the property transfer and my grandmother's intentions. And I called Lucia. "When they arrive for check-in," I said, "I need you to do exactly what we discussed." She laughed. "Valentina, your grandmother would be so proud." The day of the reunion arrived. I watched from the 2nd-floor balcony as 3 cars pulled into the driveway. My mother emerged first, wearing a white linen dress and sunglasses. Diego and his wife Mariana followed, their kids running ahead. My Uncle Hector, Aunt Teresa, and a handful of cousins I barely recognized piled out of the other vehicles. They looked happy, excited, like this was just another family gathering, another opportunity to celebrate their togetherness, without acknowledging the person they'd excluded for a decade. Lucia met them at the door, clipboard in hand, professional smile in place. I'd coached her on every word. "Welcome to Casa del Mar," she said warmly. "May I have the name for the reservation?" Diego stepped forward, confident as always. "Diego Castillo. I booked the entire property for the week." Lucia nodded, pretending to check her computer. "Ah, yes, I see it here. And will Ms. Valentina Castillo be joining you?" The group fell silent. My mother removed her sunglasses slowly. "I'm sorry, what?" Lucia looked up, perfectly neutral. "Ms. Valentina Castillo, the owner of this property. She personally approved your booking and asked me to confirm her attendance." Diego's face went pale. That's not possible. Valentina doesn't own property like this." "Perhaps there's been a mistake," my mother said quickly, her voice tight. "We're just here for a family reunion. Our daughter isn't involved in the booking." Lucia smiled politely. "No mistake, Mrs. Castillo. This property has been in Valentina's name for 7 years. She inherited it from Rosa Castillo. I'm the property manager and I can assure you everything is in order." My Aunt Teresa whispered something to my uncle. My mother's hand trembled slightly as she clutched her purse. That's when I stepped out onto the balcony where they could see me. "No mistake, Mama," I called down. "Welcome to my beach house." 12 pairs of eyes stared up at me. For a moment, nobody moved. The ocean breeze carried the sound of waves crashing, filling the silence that stretched between us. I descended the stairs slowly, deliberately. Each step echoed in the open foyer. My mother's mouth opened and closed like she was trying to form words that wouldn't come. Diego stood frozen, one hand still gripping his suitcase handle. "Valentina," my mother finally managed, her voice barely above a whisper. What is this?" I reached the bottom of the staircase and stood facing them. Lucia stepped back, giving us space, but remaining close enough to witness everything. "This," I said calmly, "is exactly what it looks like. This is my home. Abuela Rosa left it to me 7 years ago. You're standing in a property worth $2.3 million that I've been managing ever since." Diego found his voice. "That's impossible. Abuela would have told us. She would have—" "She would have what?" I interrupted, my tone still even. "Told the family that excluded her granddaughter from every gathering? Told the people who made me feel like a burden that she trusted me with her most valuable asset?" My Aunt Teresa stepped forward, attempting her usual peacekeeper role. "Valentina, honey, I think there's been a misunderstanding. We never meant to exclude you. You stopped coming to events." I pulled my phone from my pocket and held it up. "Would you like me to read the group chat messages from 10 years ago? The ones where you all decided not to invite me because I brought the mood down?" The color drained from Teresa's face. "That's what I thought," I continued. "Lucia, would you please show our guests to their rooms? They paid for the full week, and I honor my commitments. Unlike some people." My mother reached out as I turned to walk away. "Valentina, please, we need to talk about this." I paused, looking back at her. "We will talk, Mama, tonight, after everyone settles in, because there's a lot more you need to see." I walked back upstairs, leaving them standing in the foyer. Through the hallway window, I watched them huddle together, whispering urgently. Diego's hands moved in animated gestures. My mother kept shaking her head, but they didn't leave. They took their bags and followed Lucia to their assigned rooms. That evening, I invited everyone to the main living room. The space was designed to impress. Vaulted ceilings, a stone fireplace, and those floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing the sunset over the Pacific. I'd mounted a large television on one wall, and I'd connected my laptop to it earlier. They filed in one by one. Diego and Mariana sat on the leather sectional. My mother took the armchair near the fireplace. Uncle Hector, Aunt Teresa, and my cousins filled the remaining seats. The younger kids had been sent to the game room upstairs. This conversation wasn't for them. I stood near the fireplace, a remote control in my hand. On the wall behind me hung a large portrait of Abuela Rosa, her gentle smile watching over the room. Next to it, in a glass frame, was her letter of intent, the document naming me as the sole beneficiary of this property. "Thank you all for staying," I began. "I know this must be confusing, shocking even, so let me clarify a few things." I clicked the remote. The television screen lit up, displaying a screenshot of a group chat. The name at the top read Castillo Family Planning. "This," I said, "is from 10 years ago, June 15th, 3 weeks before the family reunion that would be my last." I read aloud from the screen, my voice steady. "Carmen Castillo wrote, 'Should we even invite Valentina this year? She's been so negative lately, always complaining about not finding work.' Teresa Castillo replied, 'Maybe she needs space to figure things out. Family gatherings might be too stressful for her right now.' And Diego Castillo wrote, 'Agreed. Let's give her a year to get her life together. She'll understand.'" My mother stood up abruptly. "Valentina, that was taken out of context. We were trying to help you." "Help me?" I clicked to the next slide. Another screenshot. "This is from 8 months later. Carmen Castillo. The reunion was so much more relaxed without V there. No drama, no tension. Let's keep it that way." Diego's wife Mariana turned to look at him, her expression unreadable. He wouldn't meet her eyes. "Let me finish, please," I said. "There's more." I clicked again. This time, the screen showed bank statements. $50,000 transferred from Rosa Castillo's account to Carmen Castillo's account. The memo line was clearly visible. for Valentina's education and living expenses. This transfer happened during my second year of architecture school, I explained. I was working 3 part-time jobs, living in a studio apartment with 2 roommates, eating ramen most nights because I couldn't afford anything else. I asked you for help once, Mama. Do you remember what you said? My mother's voice was barely audible. I told you I didn't have money to spare. You told me that Diego's student loans were draining your savings, I corrected. You told me I needed to be more independent. Meanwhile, you had $50,000 that Abuela specifically sent for me. Where did it go, Mama? The room was silent, except for the distant sound of waves. Diego stood up, his lawyer instincts kicking in. Okay, this is getting out of hand. Even if there was a miscommunication about money. Miscommunication? I turned to face him directly. Is that what we're calling it? Let me show you something else. I clicked through to a series of scanned images, photographs from family gatherings, each one marked with sticky notes in Abuela Rosa's handwriting. Our grandmother documented everything, I said softly. Every Christmas dinner where I was ignored. Every birthday where Diego got a car and I got a card. Every time I was made to feel like I wasn't enough. She saw it all and she wrote it down. I read one note aloud. Christmas 2013. Carmen compared Valentina to Diego in front of the entire family. Said Diego was the smart one who made good choices. Valentina excused herself to the bathroom. I found her crying in the hallway. She asked me not to tell anyone. My mother's face crumpled. She sank back into the armchair, her hands covering her mouth. Abuela knew what you were doing, I continued. She knew you were erasing me, and she made a choice. She chose to give me something you couldn't take away, proof that I was worthy, proof that someone believed in me. I clicked to the final slide. It was a photograph of a handwritten letter from Lucia Morales, dated 3 years ago, notarized and official. This is a statement from Lucia, the woman who let you in today. She's been managing this property for over 20 years. In this letter, she confirms that Abuela Rosa told her about the $50,000. Rosa asked Lucia to check with me about the money, to make sure I'd received it. When Lucia called me and I said I'd never gotten a cent, Abuela asked her to document everything. I turned to my mother. Abuela confronted you, didn't she? 2 years before she died. That's when she changed her will. My mother's shoulders shook. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. She told me, my mother whispered, that I'd failed you, that I'd let my pride and my favoritism hurt my own daughter. She said if I couldn't see your value, she'd make sure you knew it yourself. Uncle Hector cleared his throat, looking uncomfortable. Look, Valentina, we all make mistakes. Family is complicated. Can't we just move forward? I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. That's exactly what we're going to do, Tio. Move forward. But first, we need to establish something. You can stay the week. You paid for the booking, and I run an honest business, but this is the last time any of you get to use what's mine without acknowledging who I am. Mariana stood up, pulling Diego's arm. I think we need to go for a walk. She looked at me with something like respect. Thank you for showing us this, Valentina. Some of us didn't know. They left together, and I watched them through the window as they walked down to the beach. My younger cousin Anna, who'd been silent the whole time, approached me hesitantly. Valentina, she said quietly. I was only 12 back then. I didn't understand what was happening. But I'm 22 now, and I see it. I'm sorry we lost you. I touched her shoulder gently. You were a kid, Anna. This isn't about you. So one by one, the others filed out of the room. Some murmured apologies. Some said nothing. Eventually, only my mother remained. She stood up slowly, walking to where I stood by the fireplace. For a long moment, we just looked at each other. I can't undo it, she said finally. Any of it. The comparisons, the money, the years. I can't undo any of it. No, I agreed. You can't. Can you forgive me? I thought about that question. About the 22-year-old girl who stood in a backyard hearing her family laugh about excluding her. About the architecture student eating ramen while her mother sat on $50,000. About 10 years of silence and erasure. Maybe, I said. Someday, but not today. Today, I just needed you to see me, really see me, not as the daughter who didn't measure up, not as the burden, but as the person who survived your dismissal and built something anyway. I walked to Abuela Rosa's portrait and placed my hand on the frame. She saw me when you wouldn't. She gave me more than a house. She gave me permission to demand respect. My mother followed my gaze to the portrait. She was always proud of you, even when I couldn't see why. That's the saddest part, Mama, that you had to wait until I owned a multi-million-dollar property to understand my worth. She flinched at that, but she didn't argue. I pulled the golden key from my pocket, the same key Abuela had left me 7 years ago. I'd kept it with me every day since, a reminder of her faith in me. This key opened everything, I said, holding it up to the light. Not just a safety deposit box. It opened my future, my freedom, and it proved something I already knew but needed to believe. That silence doesn't mean weakness. It means I was waiting for the right moment. I placed the key on the mantel next to Abuela's portrait. This house isn't just property, it's proof. Proof that being dismissed doesn't define you. Proof that the quietest person in the room might be the one building empires while everyone else is busy talking. My mother reached out, hesitated, then let her hand drop. What happens now? I turned to face the windows, watching the sunset paint the ocean in shades of orange and gold. Now, you finish your week here. You spend time with your family, and when you leave, you remember this moment. You remember that I didn't need your approval to succeed. I just needed you to stop standing in my way. And us? She asked. Is there an us? I considered that. I don't know yet. That depends on whether you're willing to see me as I am, not as you wanted me to be. I'm not here for revenge, Mama. I'm here to show you what you missed while you were busy comparing me to Diego. That night, after everyone had gone to their rooms, I stood on the balcony of the master bedroom. The moon reflected off the ocean, creating a silver path across the water. I could hear muffled conversations from other rooms, Diego and Mariana's heated discussion, my mother's quiet crying, Anna's voice trying to comfort her. Lucia found me there an hour later, bringing me a cup of tea. Your grandmother would be very proud, she said, sitting in the chair beside me. I hope so. Sometimes I wonder if I should have just let it go, moved on without confronting them. Lucia shook her head firmly. No. What you did tonight wasn't cruelty, it was truth. They needed to see what they'd done, and you needed to stop carrying their denial. It still hurts, I admitted. Even after everything, part of me wanted them to apologize, to explain, to make it make sense. That's because you have a good heart, but you also have boundaries now. That's what Rosa gave you. Not just a house, but the foundation to build boundaries. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, listening to the waves. What will you do with the house? Lucia asked. Now that they know? I'd been thinking about that. I want to expand it, turn part of it into a retreat center for women recovering from difficult family situations, a place where they can find peace and remember their worth. Abuela's legacy shouldn't just be about me. It should help others who need the same message she gave me. Lucia smiled. She would love that. The next morning, I found blueprints I'd been working on for months spread across the dining room table. Designs for expanding the house, adding a wellness center, creating private spaces for healing and reflection. I'd been waiting for the right time to start the project. Anna found me there, looking at the plans. Is this what you do? Architecture? It's what I've always done, I said, since I was 8 years old, drawing houses on notebook paper. Abuela kept one of those drawings. It's framed in the bedroom upstairs. Can I see it? We walked upstairs together, and I showed her the framed childhood drawing. A simple house with too many windows and a crooked chimney, colored in crayon. You were 8? Anna studied it carefully. This is actually really good for a kid. Abuela thought so. Everyone else thought it was just a phase, something I'd outgrow when I got serious about real life. Anna turned to me. I want to be honest with you. I've been reading about family estrangement, about toxic dynamics. When I saw how they talked about you in those messages, I recognized patterns. I felt some of that pressure too. To be perfect, to measure up. Not as bad as what you experienced, but enough to understand. I'm sorry you felt that way. Don't be. Your story is helping me set boundaries before it gets worse. You're showing me that it's possible to love your family and still demand respect. We walked back downstairs where Diego was waiting in the kitchen. He looked like he hadn't slept. Can we talk? He asked. Anna excused herself diplomatically. I poured coffee for both of us and sat at the kitchen island across from him. Mariana and I talked for hours last night, he began. She's angry with me. She says I enabled Mom's behavior, that I benefited from your erasure and never spoke up. She's right. He flinched but nodded. I know. I've been thinking about why I stayed silent. I told myself it was easier to go along with it, that you were tough enough to handle it, that someday things would get better on their own. But they didn't. No, they didn't. And I'm realizing now that every time I accepted Mom's money, every time I let her praise me while dismissing you, I was actively choosing to participate. Silence wasn't neutral. It was choosing a side. I sipped my coffee, letting him continue. I don't expect you to forgive me, he said. I don't even know if I forgive myself yet, but I want you to know that I see it now. And I'm going to do better with my own kids. They need to know that success isn't about being better than someone else. It's about being true to yourself. That's something, I acknowledged. It's not everything, but it's something. Can I ask you something? Diego's voice was careful. That money Mom took from Abuela. The $50,000. Did you really need it that badly? I set down my coffee cup and met his eyes. I worked 3 jobs, Diego. I tutored students in math. I waitressed at a diner that smelled like grease, and I cleaned houses on weekends. I barely slept. I barely ate. And the whole time, I thought I was alone because I wasn't strong enough to make it work. Meanwhile, Mom was sitting on money specifically meant to help me, and she used it to pay down your student loans instead. His face went pale. I didn't know that's where it came from. Would it have mattered if you did? He was quiet for a long time. I'd like to think yes, but honestly, I don't know. That's what I have to live with. The week passed in strange tension. Some moments felt almost normal. Meals together, walks on the beach, card games in the evening. Other moments crackled with unspoken words and unresolved hurt. On the last day, I gathered everyone in the living room one final time. This time, the television stayed dark. The evidence had been presented. Now, it was time for clarity. Before you leave, I said, I want to be clear about something. I'm not asking you to grovel. I'm not asking you to spend the rest of your lives apologizing. What I'm asking is that you acknowledge reality. I was excluded. I was dismissed. And I survived it anyway. I gestured to the house around us. This place represents more than financial success. It represents the fact that being underestimated doesn't mean you're less than. It means people weren't paying attention. My mother stood up. She was holding a photo album, the same one Abuela Rosa had left me, the one with all the sticky notes. I asked Lucia if I could borrow this, she said quietly. I spent yesterday reading every note your grandmother wrote, every observation, every time she saw me hurt you and documented it. She opened the album to a page near the end. This note is from 2 months before she died. She wrote, Carmen still doesn't see Valentina's strength. She thinks strength looks like Diego, loud and confident. She doesn't understand that Valentina's strength is in her silence, in her patience, in her ability to keep building even when no one is watching. I hope someday Carmen realizes what she missed. My mother's voice broke. I missed everything. Your graduations, your successes, your whole life. Not because you weren't there, but because I refused to see you. She closed the album and handed it back to me. I can't give you back the years, but I can promise to do better going forward. If you'll let me. I took the album, running my fingers over its worn cover. That's not something I can answer today, but I'm not closing the door completely. I just need time. Time, she repeated. I can give you that. As they packed their cars and prepared to leave, I stood on the porch watching. One by one, they said goodbye. Some hugs felt genuine. Others felt performative. Diego handed me an envelope. "It's not 50,000, he said, "but it's a start. Consider it back payment for all those years." Inside was a check for $10,000. "I don't need your money," I told him. "I know, but I need to give it. Please." I folded the check and put it in my pocket. "I'll donate it to a scholarship fund for first-generation architecture students, in Abuela's name." He smiled, and for the first time in years, it reached his eyes. She'd like that. After they left, I walked through the empty house. Lucia was already resetting the rooms for the next guests. I found her in the kitchen, wiping down counters. "How do you feel?" she asked. Exhausted, relieved, sad, proud, all of it at once. That sounds about right. I walked back to the living room and stood before Abuela Rosa's portrait. The golden key still rested on the mantel where I'd left it. "Thank you," I whispered, "for seeing me, for believing I was worth the investment, for giving me more than money. You gave me proof that I mattered." I picked up the key and held it to the light one more time before placing it in a small wooden box on the mantel. Next to it, I placed the first donation check I'd received for the retreat center project. Seed money from a women's foundation that believed in the vision. This house would become something bigger than my personal victory. It would become a place where other women could find their voices, set their boundaries, and remember their worth. The sun was setting again, painting the sky in brilliant colors. I stepped out onto the balcony, breathing in the salt air. My phone buzzed with a message from Anna. "Thank you for letting us into your space. You didn't have to. But I learned more about self-respect in these 5 days than in 22 years. I hope we can stay in touch." I replied, "Me too. Maybe some relationships could be rebuilt, maybe some couldn't, but either way, I knew who I was now. Not Valentina, the forgotten daughter. Not Valentina, the burden. Just Valentina, architect, business owner, granddaughter of a woman wise enough to know that the quietest voices often carry the most powerful stories." I looked back at the house one more time before heading inside. My house, my legacy, my proof that being dismissed wasn't the end of my story. It was just the beginning.